It's kind of mind-blowing when you really think about it, right? Like all this stuff happening around us, chemical reactions, sunlight being turned into energy, even those futuristic quantum computers everyone's talking about, all boils down to these super tiny electrons zipping around. And actually seeing that in real time, well, that felt impossible for the longest time. But hey, you're here because you want to cut through the noise and really get to the heart of things, and that's exactly what we're doing today.
Yeah, the time scale we're talking about here is just phenomenal. Femtoseconds. That's a quadrillionth of a second. To put it into perspective, and I love these little mind benders, a single second has more femtoseconds packed into it than there are seconds in something like, 31.7 million years? It's mind-boggling. And that's the insanely short window scientists are trying to capture when they look at electron motion.
Right. And for years, the big tool, the gold standard, if you will, for peering into this ultra-fast world has been 2DES, two-dimensional electronic spectroscopy.
2DES.
Yeah, well, scientists and their acronyms, but seriously, it's a really powerful method. It basically lets researchers track how electrons are behaving with that femtosecond precision we were just talking about.
It's like having this super high-speed camera that can film events at the quantum level.
Exactly. And if we zoom out a bit and think about the bigger picture, getting a handle on these ultra-fast electron interactions is crucial for so many things. It's the foundation for tons of processes in materials, science, chemistry, and even those cutting-edge areas like quantum computing. By really grasping how electrons move and interact on this crazy small scale, we can make huge leaps in developing new technologies and even understanding the ones we already have on a way deeper level.
Couldn't put it better myself.
But here's the thing, and there's always a thing, right?
Yeah.
As revolutionary as 2DES is, it's been notoriously tricky to actually use. The experimental setups, oh boy, they're complex.
Yeah. Understatement of the century. Until very recently, it's really only been a handful of highly specialized research teams around the world who could even touch this stuff. You're talking about an incredibly powerful tool that's essentially locked away in a few exclusive labs.
And that raises a really important question for science as a whole, doesn't it? How do we take something as powerful as 2DES and make it available to a wider range of researchers?
Bingo. And that's precisely what we're going to dig into today. We're talking about a breakthrough from a German-Italian research team. They found a way to make 2DES significantly simpler and more accessible. Huge implications.
Okay, let's break this down. So we've got Professor Christoph Lee now over at the University of Oldenburg leading the charge, along with his doctoral students Daniel Timmer and Daniel Linnemann. And they've got Professor Giulio Cerullo from the Politecnico di Milan lending his expertise too. They just published their findings in the journal Optica. And what they've basically done is streamline the whole process of observing these ultra-fast electron movements. So our mission today is to get to grips with exactly how they've pulled off this simplification. What's the secret sauce?
All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty. At its heart, 2DES relies on this super carefully timed sequence of 3 ultra-short laser pulses. It's a bit like this. Imagine the first 2 pulses are identical twins. They have all the same properties, and they hit your sample first. Their job is to excite the material, which basically means boosting those electrons up to higher energy levels. And by doing this, they change how the material interacts with light.
It's like flipping a switch, right? And that switch changes how the material behaves optically. And then comes pulse number 3. We call it the probe pulse. This guy interacts with the material, which is now all excited. And by looking at how that third pulse changes after it's passed through the material, scientists can learn a ton about what those energized electrons are up to, where they are, how they're moving, how they're interacting with each other.
Yeah, here's where it gets really cool. The real power of 2DES is in its ability to control the timing between these laser pulses super precisely. Like imagine watching a film, but instead of a continuous stream of images, you're only seeing snapshots taken at very specific moments.
I get it. You're saying that by adjusting the time delay between those first 2 pulses, the excitation pulses, and then that last probe pulse, scientists are basically capturing different stages of what the electrons are doing, kind of like freezing the action at different points.
You got it. They're essentially creating this incredibly fast stop-motion film of the electron dynamics. And it's not just about the overall timing. Researchers can also vary the time interval between those initial 2 excitation pulses. This is super clever because it lets them be really picky about which specific optical transitions within the material they're actually exciting.
So it's like they've got this super fine-tuned dial that lets them zero in on specific frequencies within the material.
Exactly. It's like tuning a radio to a specific station. And this level of control is essential for studying things like how energy gets transferred during photosynthesis. Super complex stuff.
Okay, so lots of control, lots of precision. But as Professor Lino himself has pointed out, actually putting 2DES into practice, that's the real headache.
Big time. And you hit the nail on the head there. The biggest challenge has always been getting that super fine-grained control over the timing and even the shape of those first two identical laser pulses. And that's precisely what these researchers have managed to crack.
Uh-huh. So that leads us right to their big breakthrough. Their solution builds upon a technique called TWINS. It was pioneered by Professor Giulio Cerullo, and it was already a step in the right direction because it uses these special crystals called birefringent crystals.
Oh, yeah, birefringent crystals. They're pretty cool. They're like these special prisms that can split a single beam of light into two identical copies. But here's the kicker. They also introduce a tiny controllable delay between those two copies. And remember, that delay is crucial for the first step in 2DES.
So TWINS was already making things easier, but it wasn't the whole story, right? There were still some limitations.
Right. Even with 2WINS, building a truly multi-dimensional electronic spectrometer one with all the bells and whistles remained a real challenge.
Yeah.
And a lot of experts in the field thought that Cerullo's approach had kind of hit a ceiling.
Interesting. So what did our clever researchers do to push past that perceived limit?
This is where Timmer and Luneman really shine. They had this brilliant yet simple idea. They added an extra component to Cerullo's interferometer. It's called a delay quarter wave plate. Now, I know that might sound a bit jargony.
A little bit. Maybe you can break that down for us non-optics experts. What does this delay quarter wave plate actually do?
Sure. In simple terms, it acts like a tiny, tiny gate for one specific component of the light passing through it. And that gate allows the researchers to tweak the timing difference between those two laser pulses created by the birefringent crystal with incredible accuracy.
So it's like they've added this fine-tuning knob to the setup.
Exactly. It gives them so much more control. It's a game changer. And the really amazing thing is that this relatively simple extension, as they call it in their paper, gives them way more control over those crucial first two laser pulses compared to the original 2ANS method.
So it's not just a theoretical improvement. They actually tested this out in the lab, right?
Oh, yeah. They put it through its paces. They used their souped-up setup to study charge dynamics in an organic dye. And the results were crystal clear. Their modified technique was way more powerful. It's not just a cool idea, it actually works.
That's the kind of proof you want to see. And to really seal the deal, the team also went ahead and developed a whole theoretical explanation for why their enhancement works so well.
They didn't just tinker, they really understood the underlying science.
And on top of that, get this, Timmer, Luneman, and Leonow were granted a patent for their fancy new interferometry process. So they've got the scientific backing, the experimental proof, and now a patent. And that says a lot about the potential impact of this work.
Absolutely. And when we think about the wider scientific community, it's clear that the researchers are hoping this simplification will really open up 2DES to a much broader group of scientists. You won't need a super specialized lab to do this work anymore, and that's a big deal. It could accelerate research in tons of different fields.
So just to recap for everyone, the takeaway here is that this clever but relatively simple tweak, adding that delay quarter wave plate, has unlocked the true potential of 2DES. And 2DES, as we've been talking about, is this really powerful tool for observing the ultra-fast world of electrons.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it. We're talking about events that happen in quadrillionths of a second. And now, more researchers will have the tools to study these events in detail.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it, what kind of breakthroughs are just around the corner now that we have this more accessible way to essentially slow down and watch these super fast processes unfold.
Yeah, think about materials science, where understanding electron behavior is key to designing new materials with specific properties. Or energy research, where efficiency in things like solar panels comes down to controlling the flow of electrons. And then there's the whole world of quantum technologies.
Quantum technologies, where manipulating individual electrons is the name of the game. It's mind-blowing. Who knows what kind of new questions we'll be able to answer with this technology. It really feels like we're on the verge of some major discoveries.
Absolutely. It's an exciting time to be in science. This kind of breakthrough really opens up a whole new world of possibilities.
It certainly does. It's like we've just been handed a new set of glasses to see the world in a completely different light.
Well said. I think we've given everyone a lot to think about today.
We definitely have. And that's what we love to do here at The Deep Dive. Get those scientific wheels turning.
Always a pleasure.
Until next time.
See you then.